Welcome to the RevCast episode 2. I'm Revo, the host, and I'm here with Hantao today. What's up, Hantao? How you doing? How's it going?
Thank you for inviting me. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good, man. Good, man. Like I said previously, I appreciate you just coming on here and taking the time out of your day to do this podcast with me. It's fairly new, and have you ever been on a podcast before?
Yeah, I have.
You have? Okay. Like a lot of them, or just a few, or
Yeah, just a few from people that have invited me
okay.
to.
Have you ever thought about doing a podcast yourself, or is this not something that interests you?
Yeah, I did one actually
Okay.
2 years ago.
What was it
I actually
called?
have some of it. I was just like talking with some of my friends in gaming and like
Okay.
getting their story, their experience, and like talking about some advice stuff.
Oh, okay. That's cool. Well, I guess we'll go straight into it. And the first question I want to ask is like, who are you today, and like, what do you like? If you were to introduce yourself to somebody, how would you do so?
Yeah, so um, I have about 8 years, over 8 years of experience in traditional gaming,
Hmm.
and primarily worked in the back end with creators, brands, working on social content, marketing. And now I like to dabble more on new creative things, and part of that being blockchain stuff like NFTs, NFT gaming,
Hmm.
as well as just like how to push content and gaming further.
Okay, for sure. Um, you said you've been in the industry for 8 years. That's a long time, especially gaming's only been a very big thing, like something that you can make a living on for like maybe 5 years now. I mean, other than like Phase and Optic, where they start off very early. I mean, I guess you could say you started very early in gaming as well, right?
Yeah, so I think the moment when I realized that like it was gonna be something, when I was watching, I think it was League of Legends World Season 2,
Mm-hmm.
when it was Azubu Frost versus Taipei Assassins, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
Um, this is when I was in college and like organizing club events.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just like volunteered. And then even during that time for like 2.5 years,
Mm-hmm.
I still didn't really know whether or not I could actually get a job after university.
Mm-hmm.
So I just worked for a random company.
Mm-hmm.
And interestingly enough, my first job in gaming actually did not pay me that much. It was like literally 1,700 Canadian a month. And I was living by myself. So I had to like
Mm-hmm.
pay rent and food. It was like barely enough to
Mm-hmm.
live at that time. And I worked for like a year doing that stuff. So
So, what did you game when you were younger, or like what got you into esports? Just the generic business side of it, or were you a gamer as well?
yeah, so in college, I grew up because I lived in like a primarily Caucasian area.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so when I was growing up, I actually played a lot of sports,
Mm-hmm.
like played soccer for 5 years, I
Mm-hmm.
think.
Mm-hmm.
Played basketball, volleyball, football. So it's like all the quote unquote white sports.
Mm-hmm.
And then I actually didn't game at all
Mm-hmm.
until I think grade 12.
Mm-hmm.
Because I like got pretty burnt out in soccer because I was playing like the level, like the regional level,
Mm-hmm.
where you like I had to travel every weekend for away games, and it was like 4 hours of traveling
Mm-hmm.
back and forth. It was like terrible. So I was just like, I want to do something more chill. And at that time, one of my other childhood friends at that time, I think his name was Victor,
Mm-hmm.
who lived in the same like city. He had a party, and he actually gave me a copy of Diablo 2.
Okay.
But I actually couldn't play the game because my parents didn't have a good enough computer.
Mm-hmm.
So the only thing I could actually play was like very basic RuneScape, and it actually didn't even run that well. So I played some RuneScape on like 30 FPS, 20, 30 FPS maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like those old screens with like the very thick
Yeah. Yeah.
computers. And that's kind of how I started. And then I moved to StarCraft, um, League of Legends, Counter Strike, Path of Exile, lots and lots of different games.
So you never even like really gamed on a console then, really, when you were young? Like you were just strictly straight to
Yeah.
PC? That's
Yeah,
crazy.
my parents couldn't afford because we immigrated to Canada, because
Uh-huh.
so we couldn't afford like a console. And then I actually got like PC gaming way before
Mhm.
I had any kind of Nintendo
Mhm.
or console. I did play console games. I think the first one that I actually played way back was like, so like my first ever experience with gaming
Uh-huh.
was probably on Sega,
Okay.
and it was X-Men, like the platform X-Men with like
Mhm.
Gambit, Wolverine, and those
Mhm.
guys.
Hey, you go way back. Like the gaming back then was a lot different than it is nowadays, right? And you got into PC gaming really early, and like so you could say that you kind of saw gaming grow up in a sense, and how the different elevations of it. I mean, obviously back then there was nowhere near what there is audience nowadays, right? Like, can you put that into words and how fast it grew in that time period, like for you in a sense?
Well, I mean, I think the best way is actually through dollars.
Yeah.
I think the first world championship for League of Legends was like $25,000 or
Yeah.
something,
Yeah.
and that was a world championship between like a bunch of teams in North America. They
Mhm.
didn't even have teams in other countries,
Mhm.
and now it's like million, tens, hundreds of millions of dollars to get a
Mhm.
spot in a
Yeah.
franchise. So
It's crazy. Like I think the first like big price pool I've ever seen was like in Dota. Like Dota
yeah.
is like the first one where I seen like, dang, like people are actually making a lot of money in this industry, and I think that's what kind of um, got me more into the esports scene. But
Mhm.
I started on console, so I'm kind of like a little bit different than you. Like I started way back on like the Nintendo 64, playing Mario Kart, playing Donkey Kong, stuff like that. And then I went straight to like FPS shooters and like playing Call of Duty, playing Halo, stuff like that. The earliest experience I've known you from is your days at SOAR. I actually started
Mhm.
watching your YouTube way back then when you would I forget the series, but you would talk. I think the first one I watched is you did an interview with one of the people from Corsair. Um,
Yeah.
it was a female. I forget her name. But that was actually
Yeah.
one of the first videos I ever saw of you, and I kind of just wanted to ask you, like, how did I mean, you went over it in a couple of videos, but I guess I kind of want to retouch that. Is how'd you get with SOAR, and like, do you consider that like your stepping stone to get even more successful in
Yeah.
esports?
Yeah. So I mean, so initially I actually got into gaming because of collegiate.
Mm-hmm.
So back then we didn't know we could get jobs in gaming,
Mm-hmm.
but we were like, oh, we could. My Facebook actually has some photos from way back, but
Mm-hmm.
essentially it was like we can run events for these games,
Mm-hmm.
and then I started like evolving my, I guess you could call it, thesis of
Mm-hmm.
like what gaming and like community building, etc., looks like.
Mm-hmm.
So I, because of that, I got into a company that my other friend was building. His name is Dylan. He's in Texas, and he is building a marketplace essentially
Mm-hmm.
between sponsors and live events.
Mm-hmm.
So for us, like we landed a contract at that time with a game publisher to help bring their game to different college clubs
Mm-hmm.
and events. And because I had like startup experience, I also did a couple other businesses at that time just
Mm-hmm.
to like learn more. By the time I actually met Anthony, his username is YouTubeable.
Mm-hmm.
So he did Omegle girl voice trolling.
Mm-hmm.
And back then, Anthony was like, "Hey, Hantao," because we worked at the same company. So I got hired to do business development at a streaming platform,
Mm-hmm.
and then Anthony got brought on to help also do BD.
Mm-hmm.
But he was like, "Hey, Hantao, Soar Gaming needs help. They came from the same era as FaZe Clan and Optic Gaming. If you don't know Soar, the creators of FaZe Clan actually made Soar Gaming,
Mm-hmm.
and then they left Soar to make FaZe.
Mm-hmm.
So they never really got to the same place. And I was like, okay, cool. How can I help? So I had a call with Crudes, who's now like a VP, I think,
Mm-hmm.
and then Mac. And Mac is, I think, the president.
Okay.
if I remember correctly now. So I just helped them out with like structuring it and just like being another person that is at a high level,
Mm-hmm.
and being useful to the team and like helping them out with like certain things. So essentially the biggest thing was like, how do we scale SOAR? Because a lot of the other teams have immense capital
Mm-hmm.
and millions of dollars of funding. How do we compete with them? And it was just like, hey, let's just, work on these verticals, try to raise some money and talk to some investors. And then I think 6 months after I started working with them, they were purchased out by E11 Holdings, which is a
Mm-hmm.
company owned by Zach Hyman.
Mm-hmm.
And so right now, like I think E11 is like pretty inactive and they put all their resources into Soar Gaming,
Mm-hmm.
which is a pretty good decision actually, because initially when they purchased Soar and I spoke to Ollie, I think when I first spoke to Ollie, who's a CEO at E11,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even know that they were going to make a team.
Mm-hmm.
I think he just wanted like some advice and just to talk. But when they launched that, they actually had E11, and E11 back then had like all the pros in Fortnite, if you
Mm-hmm.
remember,
Yeah.
like
No, in the very
all
early
the world,
stages. Yeah.
yeah, all the World Cup qualifiers,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And then Soar also had a brand as
Mm-hmm.
well, so it didn't make sense to me when they announced it. But now, like, they have a better goal, which is cool. So I actually left Soar because I was pretty inactive.
Mm-hmm.
I actually didn't like the team side that much.
Really? Why?
Yeah.
I mean,
It was just like a lot of people to manage. A
really.
lot of like managing a business is like I have expectations and then the
Mm-hmm.
people that I bringing on have expectations,
Correct. Yeah. Yeah.
right? But in a team, it's like instead of employees, you have people who are creators who might have never worked a real job in their life
Mm-hmm.
for some of them. So they don't understand like how to actually handle a business relationship. So
Mm-hmm.
when you talk to them, like they don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
For other creators, like they have the business knowledge and the understanding,
Mm-hmm.
right? But for a lot of them, it's like their first time doing content, it's the first time they're working a job or making revenue,
Mm-hmm.
etc. So it's like the complexity of owning a team was just like so much bigger than just owning a company.
Mm-hmm. So it wasn't. It was more. You had bigger ambitions than just to be a part of something. You wanted to kind of do your own thing, in a sense.
So like when I was helping Cruz and Mac, like I think like Cruz is super intelligent.
Mm-hmm.
And Max, I think at the time he was probably just burnt out
Mm-hmm.
from owning Soar for like I think it was like 6 years or
Mm-hmm.
something without actually getting any benefit from it.
Mm-hmm.
Because they never took any salary for themselves as founders.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so they just needed that rejuvenation and to be pushed in the right direction with the right operational structure.
Mm-hmm.
And then once they did, they really saw success. And I
Mm-hmm.
think right now they're like really killing it. But for me, it was like I didn't have any equity in Soar. I didn't have any like stake.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a great foot in the door, but obviously I didn't have any ownership.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't as like I didn't want to be an employee, basically.
Yeah.
If that made sense.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I get that 100%. You kind of, I mean, but you learned a lot, right? I mean, that you took away something from that, you know,
Yeah.
from being
Yeah.
in store,
Yeah, I
obviously.
did learn a lot from like Max, Crudes, and also Mike as well, who's now I think like the GM.
Mm-hmm. And then from Sora, you went straight to Chronic, I believe, right?
So after SOAR, this was before they announced their funding,
Mm-hmm.
but I actually became really inactive and I was just looking around for other things to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually wanted to do influencer management. I think that was the key part that actually interested me.
Mm-hmm.
Why? It was because like all of the different brands wanted distribution,
Yeah.
right? And what is an esports team? It's just like a house for distribution. It's like an agency, if
Mm-hmm.
anything.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I was like, oh, why go through all the trouble of owning a team, paying players, building all this infrastructure, uploading content when you can just like very simple. I work with the creator, I give them deals, You get money,
Mm-hmm.
you get more creators, you scale, whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I actually wanted to do influencer management at that time. Because through Collegiate, I worked with a lot of different brands. Through Sora, I met a lot of different brands. I was just like,
You had
why not just
you had the connections to do so. I mean, you had like a base model of how to do it, and I mean, in a way, it was kind of like easy money for you in a way, right?
yeah. Because at that time, I was like hella struggling, you
Yeah.
know?
I think with
Uh,
anything starting out in esports, you're struggling. Like it's like the way I put esports, like if anyone trying to get into it, it's like obviously there's money in it, but in the beginning, it's more passion driven than anything. You got to have the passion. You got to keep moving forward, and you got to work towards your goals. I mean, in this industry, you can't really get handed anything because there's nothing to be handed. You know what I mean? Um,
yeah, exactly. So like my main focus was just like trying to live,
yeah.
you know?
Hmm.
So at that time, I did have another job. So usually I have like two jobs just to
Hmm.
make additional income. But before it was like I was working at a streaming platform and I was also helping out this team, but the team didn't make any revenue or
Hmm.
anything like that. Or I didn't take any revenue. So I looked at influencers and at that time I think Chronic, because Fortnite changed how console editing
Hmm.
and building worked.
Hmm.
Because before console was really sluggish, just like you had to highlight, edit,
Yeah.
confirm, and they made it faster, right? So a lot of console players started really popping up on the timeline because I think Fortnite has like 70% console players
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah.
So they only had a Twitter page. I think it had like 20,000 followers,
Hmm.
and it was X Shaw, Luis, and Sway, and then a few other people.
Hmm.
The people that actually introduced me to have a meeting with all these guys was Orange and Eagle.
Hmm.
Um, and they were actually deciding between me or joining Obey Alliance back then.
Okay. They had that option, or you
Chronic did.
Chronic did, right? Oh, okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
Obey. I mean, Obey's been a thing for a while too. So.
Yeah. And back then, the reason they didn't take Obey Alliance was because they would have to merge into Obey and
Hmm.
they would lose the Chronic branding. And they
Hmm.
wanted the Chronic branding,
Hmm.
right? So I, had some experience running YouTube. I also asked Crudes a lot of questions about YouTube to learn.
Hmm.
And then Mike also helped a lot with YouTube as well. So, I got a lot of help from the store guys on this new channel. And we, I started working on everything. Like I made the YouTube, I made the Instagram, I made an email,
Hmm.
like do the Google Gmail, G Suite emails, company email folders, all this like back end stuff. I
Hmm.
did a business license so that I could actually operate. And then we started uploading
Hmm.
and we were getting like 100,000 views a video.
Hmm.
It was crazy back then. And we were only uploading montages.
Hmm.
And then when we were finally monetized on YouTube, we were making like $1,000 a month.
Hmm.
And like, I think for the whole duration, like I literally just spent all the money to try to keep growing it. Like we spent some of it on players. We spent some of it on, we spent actually the majority, I would say the budget on editing
Hmm.
because I wanted to make sure the editors were paid because way back then editors were paid like $20 a video
Hmm. Yeah.
to do these like hella good montages. So we were actually paying them like $100 when everyone else is paying like 50 or
Yeah.
under.
Hmm. So
Um,
you went straight into Chronic, like you went in there to do the business side, like the BD, like the business development, like straight off the bat. That's what you got into for Chronic.
I did all the operations essentially.
Okay, so like there was no like grace period of you learning how Chronic worked, nothing like that. Like they didn't really have a business model at all, right?
Yeah, they just had a Twitter page and like hella number of players
Yeah. I mean,
that were like clouded on console, right? So
yeah, that's crazy. I like from the outside looking in, it looked like Chronic was already. I mean, obviously just a Twitter page, right? But it looked like they had like a belt structure. But coming from you is like they didn't have really anything until you joined, right? then you kind of ran the whole operations there. Um, that's
Yeah, I
great.
mean, like the guys that were in Chronic were all like 14
It's
to
crazy.
16 at the time. So like they didn't understand how to run a business, right? So like they built something really, really cool. They just didn't have structure around it.
Hmm.
Right. So it's just like me coming in, giving structure and continuing momentum and
Hmm.
like really owning like that process.
So I mean, and then you found the most success by just reinvesting the money earned into the brand even more, right? I mean, that's what it
Yeah.
seems like.
I mean, I had to keep it growing
Hmm.
because so basically the goal that I set for myself was like in 6 months of starting this,
Hmm.
I expected to get funding
Hmm.
of some sort or enough sponsors to basically just, YOLO it
Hmm.
without funding.
Hmm.
Um, and everything that like we made, like it just had to go through into that goal because if I took any like salary at all or anything like that, like it wouldn't work because we
Exactly.
didn't even make enough.
Hmm. So, how did you get by while running Chronic in the beginning stages? How did you get by with like
Yeah,
your bills? Like,
I had another full-time job just
what
like you.
really?
Yeah, I
Well,
was doing partnership management at a streaming company.
oh, again, it's all passion driven, right? You gotta just do what you gotta do. That's crazy. Yeah. How long were your days like during the beginning stages of Chronic? Like, how long were you up? How long were you grinding? How long like what kept you motivated to keep going?
Probably like 16 hours. So it'd be like I do my full-time job and then
Hmm.
after I'd coordinate all the other stuff after work.
What
Uh
what kept you motivated? Like, what kept you going during those stages?
it was just like there's this bigger goal, right? And
Hmm.
like at the end of the day, I'm getting paid like, whatever amount of dollars a month, but
Hmm.
I want to be able to live comfortably
Hmm.
and I want to have ownership in what I do. Like I don't want to be an employee forever for the
Hmm.
rest of my life, right?
Hmm.
I'm not a technical person, so I'm
Hmm.
not a developer, I'm not a programmer, I'm not an engineer, I'm not like a doctor, whatever. So I don't have the ability to go like, oh, yeah, I'm in a job, I work, but I make like $500,000 a year doing that
Hmm.
at Netflix or Facebook or Google. I didn't have that option, right? So it's like I had to really own a business in order to get to that place.
Okay. Okay. Well, I guess moving forward, like, so obviously Chronic, you got it moving. I guess the next question would be is like, how did the in a sense fallout of Chronic happen, and what made you ultimately rebrand to Evade?
Yeah, so the fallout happened because X, Luis, Shaw, and Sway all left.
Hmm.
Sway actually got poached for FaZe Clan. So originally, Ghost Gaming approached Sway, I think,
Hmm.
to bring him to Ghost.
Hmm.
They wanted that was like the first time that these kids were getting salary in their life,
Hmm.
right? Um, and just to be clear, I think they were getting paid like $500 a month, and they were on 3-year contracts, right?
That's insane.
Yeah, they got fucking scammed.
Yeah, that's
Please,
fucking insane, man. Like,
please bleep that out. But
yeah,
so when they left, like they all stepped back.
yeah.
Sway joined FaZe. That was amazing.
Hmm.
These three guys made it a Ghost, which was like considered tier one at the time,
Hmm.
or tier two in like different games. So I basically took all of the responsibilities and I brought on like Rowan, who was just a graphic designer,
Hmm.
Eagle, Orange, like Holy, all these guys back then were like contributing, and
Hmm.
we were all working for free too.
Hmm.
But like we really built everything, got the processes, started uploading, made sure that all the talent came to recordings, consistency, etc.
Hmm.
And then X was like, "Oh, this is really big." I think Rob at Ghost
Hmm.
was like, "Yeah, I'll buy Chronic from you." And X basically was said like, "Oh, this is life changing money for me. I want to take this." Like I want to sell the team to him. And then I was like, for me, sure, it makes sense that because they started the company, they could, get some money from selling the team. But
Mm,
um, for me, it was like, hey, dude, I built all of this in the last, you know, 3 months
mm,
with all these different people. And then you also had the other people who founded Chronic, like Shaw, Luis Way. And it's
mm,
like, what are they getting out of it too?
mm,
Right. And it's like, sure, he buys the team. Is the team going to get funded, or is this just you trying to exit the team?
mm,
Right. So we had a whole huge argument on Twitter. And basically, I should just defend myself.
mm,
And at the end of it, what came out was basically just like, just do whatever you want, but I want the name Chronic
mm,
to not be continued on,
mm,
was what X requested. So I was like,
mm.
okay, sure. You know, so we rebranded to Evade, and then all the other people that, wanted to stay with Chronic or whatever, that they left. And then Evade, we just rebranded and continued with that.
So were the rights to Chronic already written in for X? Like that was they already
There's no contracts in
nothing?
esports, man.
Yeah, I mean,
Like,
yeah,
come on, let's be
nowadays.
real. You think people have trademarks for their shit? Like,
So it was more of like a gentleman's agreement between you guys, right? Like it wasn't anything.
yeah, I mean, I was just like trying to be reasonable, right?
Yeah.
Like, I didn't want to build a brand that other people just despised.
Hmm. I mean, and that's understandable. I mean, I think this industry is more of um how you do than what you do. So, that makes sense. And with Chronic coming back and then kind of rebuilding, did that have anything to do with you as far as them asking you anything to do with it? Like they just brought it back on their own will, or like did they have to talk to you about that or anything like that?
No, they just brought it back on their own will.
Okay. Um.
Yeah.
Okay. So and then moving on to Evade, obviously you took more of a business route with Evade, and obviously you guys got purchased by Overtime, correct?
Yeah.
Um. Talk me through the process of getting that, like having Overtime purchased. Like, did you reach out to them or did they reach out to you, and how overall did that go?
Yeah. So back when I was in SOAR, I met somebody called Chris.
Mm-hmm.
He was the like lead or general manager for Orlando Magic 2K.
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking because we were looking for investors back then, actually.
Mm-hmm.
So, just talking to people, seeing what network we can build to really see like, who's interested in the market to buy a team.
Mm-hmm.
And then Chris, he knew somebody from FaZe Clan.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was like a vice president or something.
Mm-hmm.
And then that FaZe Clan VP knew Dan Porter, who's the CEO of Overtime.
Mm-hmm.
And Dan at that time had a team called Team Overtime
Mm-hmm.
under Overtime Sports
Mm-hmm.
that was ran by his son Miles.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and Dan like really loves the idea of like owning IP, just doing cool shit.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why he started Team Overtime. But then when I, came in with with Evade, Chris reached out to me. He's like, "Hey, we're looking to build out some better gaming stuff for Overtime."
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, "Sure, what do you need?" And then they were like, I looked at all the books. Obviously, a lot of VC spend a lot of money,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then there's people who are operating at very low cost
Mm-hmm.
but still building audiences.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they looked at everything, it's just like, oh, this makes sense from a collaboration standpoint,
Mm-hmm.
because I think Miles was also like getting close to going to college soon, and
Mm-hmm.
he was like grade 11 or 12, grade 11, I think,
Mm-hmm.
going into it. So he was getting busier with like exams and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
right? So they really needed somebody to lead their Fortnite side.
Mm-hmm.
And then Chris also started the 2K and the Overtime 2K side.
So just give me a general what is Quest and what is it about?
Yeah, so essentially we see all these people talking about like NFTs, crypto, everybody's making money, it's a Ponzi scheme, it's a scam, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
right? And for me it's like I played probably 10,000 hours
Mm-hmm.
of RuneScape, Diablo 2, and Path of Exile. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, where did all my torched time go? Right? And it's like, oh, you know, if you actually had ownership of these assets, I could just sell them whenever.
Mm-hmm.
Because player markets already exist. Like
Mm-hmm.
if I was on World of Warcraft, if I wanted to sell World of Warcraft gold, you can.
Mm-hmm.
They're just illegal, quote
Yeah.
unquote,
Yeah.
because it's controlled by gaming publishers. But on Web3, it's like you actually own the assets and you can just sell them,
Mm-hmm.
right? Where it's like in Web2, it's like you have to transfer it in game. And then what
Mm-hmm.
happens if they refund the PayPal, if they don't send the PayPal payment, et cetera, you just get scammed, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this service already existed, like Web2. I just saw so many similarities.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, Web3 gaming is no brainer.
Mm-hmm. I think
Gaming and gamification. Let's
yeah.
go
I
ahead.
mean, Web3, like for example, um, the I forget his name. The YouTube. He just left YouTube and Google. Ryan
Quiz.
Fwiz. He just left that for his own, kind of to be CEO of a Web3 company. So I definitely see the how it's gonna take over in a sense, and I see where you're going with Quest, and it just makes sense. Like you're saying, it just makes sense to go that route, right? Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Cause
yeah,
like,
further explain Quest. I kind of cut you off there.
yeah. So essentially, I would say Quest and what we call guilds
Mm-hmm.
are the Web2 equivalent esports teams.
Mm-hmm.
So because I already had 8 years of experience in traditional gaming, I was
Mm-hmm.
like, gamification in gaming is going to help all these normies
Mm-hmm.
transition into new technology.
Mm-hmm.
Like when the internet first started, people didn't know anything.
Mm-hmm.
When video games first started, that was what really got people into it, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
Robinhood is gamified
Mm-hmm.
because you can see your gains. It was very simple. The user experience was just like, this is the game. You put in some money, you make money or you lose money, right?
Exactly.
So it's very gamified. And just that like methodology made it a no-brainer for me to be like, oh, I already have skills I can use.
Mm-hmm.
And I see a lot of infrastructure problems right now in
Mm-hmm.
Web3. So I can come in, I can like basically give my experience, utilize what I know from Web2, and really
Mm-hmm.
change a lot of these things in Web3.
Okay. And so, what does that mean, like for overtime? Like as far as your role and over, like, are you kind of putting that more on, not necessarily on the back burner, but are you focusing more on your quest in Web3, or are you still kind of evenly spreading your work force?
Yeah. Yeah. I say still evenly spreading out my work.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, like for overtime, for example,
Mm-hmm.
right now we're actually building groups
Mm-hmm.
within different games. We have Warzone group
Mm-hmm.
coming up. We have a Valorant group coming up.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also helping on the NFT side because we launched Bracket X, which is like March Madness, NBA
Mm-hmm.
Final, fantasy brackets
Mm-hmm.
on Solana with Magic Eden.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm still doing a lot of different things for overtime.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then I'm also doing a lot of things for Quest. It's like literally what I've basically figured out is like at the end of the day, people just want results,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
Like I have people that work 8 hours and output like very minimal results,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or you could work 4 hours and you can still output the results. So I think for me, it's just like being as efficient with my time as possible and like really getting stuff done.
Mm-hmm. And what is your balance like as far as your obviously your work and your social life? So like, do you have a solid balance? Do you think you have a social balance, or like, are you kind of
No.
just strictly working right now?
Yeah, literally building. Like I don't go outside.
Yeah, I'm saying with me. Other than work, I don't
Uh,
go outside.
yeah, like dude, I literally go outside for groceries
Yeah.
or else I'm just like literally I stay on my computer, I work out at the gym sometimes, and then
Mm-hmm.
I literally just go home and sleep. Or sorry, not. I just go to my bed and sleep.
Mm-hmm.
I have very like separated areas because I live in a townhouse.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I just wake up, I do all my different tasks, follow ups, and meetings and everything. So
Hmm. And are you? Would you say you're heavily invested into the NFT space? I know it's
Definitely,
shot out of the dark, but yeah, that's another question.
definitely not.
No.
Definitely not. Um, the majority of my money, because the stock market crashed,
Mhm.
so the only way you lose money is if you sell. So
Mhm.
I actually haven't sold any of my stocks.
Yeah.
But the majority of my money is in stocks because I actually haven't been in Web3 for a long time.
Mhm.
I think I started crypto like maybe a year ago,
Mhm.
actually, and it wasn't even NFT gaming. I think I actually started NFT gaming for like 5 6 months now.
Okay. What is your thoughts or your comments on like how I mean you see Twitter, right? You see all
Uh-huh.
these Fortnite players, these creators, these just literally posting a copy paste. I mean, it kind of died down now, but before like 2 months, 3 months ago, it was just literally every other post was a copy paste of join this NFT or mint now, whatever that. What is your thoughts on that? Like, do you think that affected their brand in any way? Like, what would you suggest any of your players to do something like that?
Um, so I don't necessarily have like a positive or negative thought towards it.
Mm-hmm.
For them to post ads and stuff is great because
Mm-hmm.
they can monetize, but it's just like when they do it too much, you obviously know why because they're
Mm-hmm.
greedy.
Mm-hmm.
But just like the botting aspect, is not the good part,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, it's like, dude, there's like so many Fortnite because like Fortnite doesn't really support their scene as much as other publishers,
Exactly.
right? So Fortnite, like, if you're a Fortnite player, you're putting in like 20 hours every day into playing Fortnite to get
Mm-hmm.
better,
Mm-hmm.
and then what? You have $100 of earnings every year. Like, what do you do with that, right?
Nothing.
So obviously, when they look at NFTs, it's like, oh, I can make $200 to $1,000 a tweet. Of course, I'm going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
That's like literally my year's salary in Fortnite. Why would I play Fortnite if I can make money doing this?
Mm-hmm. For sure. I see that for sure. Um, well, I get like to try to like close this out, but I do have. What is your opinions as far as because a typical Fortnite player, right? They're more competitive, like especially the competitive players. They don't really care about their content, right? They I don't see them daily openly. They don't stream. Like there's no money in Fortnite. What would you? How would you go about advising a player to upscale their brand? Like what would the route that you would go? Like what do you tell your players?
Yeah, I mean, just literally look at who's succeeding.
Mm-hmm.
Is Mr. Beast a competitive player? Is Tfue still a competitive player? Yeah, he's really great at video games, but he
Yeah.
doesn't play competitively on
Mm-hmm.
certain things, right? Um, does Shroud still compete competitively?
Nope.
Right? Like who are the people actually still making money? Is it the people who
Creators.
are
The
yeah,
creators.
exactly. Yeah, like I don't need to tell them what's right or wrong. Like just look at what's out there right now.
Look what's succeeding.
Um, and the surprising thing for the guild side,
Mm-hmm.
like the Web3 side, is like a lot of the creators that actually come over are ex pros from other games
Mm-hmm.
because they played competitively, but they never focused on content.
Mm-hmm.
So because they didn't focus on content, they had to transition to a new game to try to rebuild, and
Mm-hmm.
that's why they're in Web3.
Mm-hmm. For sure. All right, man. Well, is there anything we can really expect from you in the near future that you want people to know, or are you just working hard on your brands, or what's going on?
For overtime, we're gonna announce some groups soon.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna have some Valorant players joining. We're gonna have some Warzone players joining, diversify the games a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Fortnite's like kind of in this like middle ground right now, so
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, I feel like that was a really good talk between me and you, and I definitely appreciate you coming on here. We are reaching the 45-minute mark already. Time flew by. Um, well, is there any like closing comments or anything you wanted to say? Anything?
um, nope. I appreciate you talking to me, asking me questions.
Cool, man. Yeah, again, I appreciate you taking the time out of your day. To even do this, like I said, I'm just starting this out, and again, it's more of like a passion thing. I want to see where it goes. I definitely know that I'm kind of more of a soft-spoken person, and I'm trying to get out of that bubble. You know what I mean? So this is kind of just more helping me get more comfortable in speaking, right?
Yeah.
Because
The
unlike
mic will help. The mic change would help a lot.
yeah,
If you gotta sure.
I'm gonna get one.
So
Yeah, I'm gonna get one. Yeah, I mean, because with me, I didn't really go like I didn't take the college route or anything like that, so I really had no like public speaking, um,
yeah.
like experience. So this is
Yeah.
kind of me trying to learn how to be more of a public speaker and just trying to build myself out. So I appreciate you just taking your time out of doing this. Hey, it might not do numbers or anything like that, but it's more just for me and just trying to get that out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't worry. Some of my YouTube videos from like 3 years ago are still getting views. So
For sure. That's
when you're famous, it'll pop off.
hopefully, right? Hopefully, that's the goal,
Yeah.
is to try to make this a full-time career, because waking
Yeah.
up at 4 a.m. ain't it no more, man. Kind of over it. But all right, man. Again, I appreciate you coming on, and thank you again.